5-Year Mission Podcast, Episode 1.
This week's episode of the 5-Year Mission Podcast is brought to you by FANSETS, the place for amazing pin collectibles. See all the pins and collectibles they have to offer at fansets.com, and stay tuned for this week's special 5-Year Mission Podcast discount code. FANSETS. We are Star Trek.
Bye. By now you figured out that this is the 5-Year Mission Podcast.
Start over. I forgot what we were doing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of the 5-Year Mission Podcast. Noah is already having to turn his head away because of my podcast voice, because he's laughing. That is not a good start to the podcast, Noah. Today we are joined by Mr. Chris Spurgeon himself, Mr. Mike Rittenhouse, and Noah Butler. Patrick is currently absent, but we will have him on future episodes. Today, our first subject is going to be our first experiences with Star Trek as a band. Whether it be through the TV shows, through the movies, through conventions experiences. I don't have to pluralize both. Convention experiences. There we go. So today, that is going to be our topic. Who wants to get us started? Anybody? Bueller? Butler?
I'll start.
Good job.
I was going to talk about my early memories of Star Trek. And I watched the show in the 80s in reruns as a kid as sort of the filler between the Star Wars movies.
Now, was this like before school, after school, summertime?
It was usually on a dinner time for some reason. It was like maybe in the 5 to 6 slot on some. I did not have cable, as I established in an earlier thing. So it was just some random channel that had it, you know, one of 5 stations that had Star Trek in syndication. And we watched it during dinner most of the time. And so it was awesome. It was that sci-fi fix that I needed. And of course, the episodes where Kirk got his shirt cut open and slightly bled with like a lipstick mark across his chest or something was always really cool. And anything that had aliens, you know, actual Andorians or something in it was really cool. But I mean, I really, really loved it. Like my best friend lived next door to me, and we would take cardboard boxes and tape a bunch of white sheets of paper to it and like draw the glowing light circle buttons, you know, and made like our own like bridge panels, control panels, computer panels and stuff, and actually like play acted Star Trek original series. And this is probably like in 82 in 83 that we're doing this. My mom had these like weird plastic like jewelry cases, and they were just kind of rectangular, and they just had like the little like flip latch on them, and we could and a hinge, and we would flip them open.
That'd be
and
like your communicator.
Yep, and we would pretend they were communicators. Sometimes we would like draw the little dials and buttons and tape the piece of paper inside the box so that when we flipped it open, it was actually there. And like that's.
Did you guys actually do like the sound effects yourselves?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do one for us. Okay, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's what I remember doing.
Sounds more like a transformer.
I mean, it could be a communicator, it could be a transformer, it could be a sprinkler.
Transformers were more. Oh yeah. I guess it was less and more.
A little more of a flange effect to it.
Yeah.
We lived it. We like me and my best friend next door. We lived that. Inside our house, outside our house, like we lived Star Trek.
I think that Noah is officially the youngest Trekkie in the band. Like,
got into it at the earliest age.
I think the rest of us definitely got into it at a later age than that. Like, I wasn't young enough to be drawing on cardboard boxes, that's for sure.
Chris, what was your first kind of experience?
We played a lot of Star Wars. We played a lot of Dukes of Hazzard. stuff like that. I mean, we were, I think we might.
Were you Bo or Luke?
Well, I was Luke.
See,
Because your
got
hair.
dark
My
hair.
brother has blonde hair, so he was Bo.
I was always Bo.
I think we even played Airwolf. I mean, we played all the, I know.
But did you play Highwayman?
No, we didn't play Highwayman. I didn't know what Highwayman was until I met you. But I don't really remember a lot of Star Trek when I was a kid. I remember it existed, and I have a good friend, and he has always been a Trekkie. He loved it, and I was kind of peripheral to that. I knew it existed, and I liked it because of him, but I didn't really understand what it was until I got older. Oddly enough, I saw the movies before I saw the series, because the original series movies, like Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock,
Voyage Home.
Yeah, Voyage Home. All of those, all the way up to even the Next Generation through Nemesis, I guess. I saw all of those before I really sat down to watch any of the series. And I didn't even really sit down and watch the series from, first episode to last episode, any of the series, until I got in the band. But I would see, they would be on TV in syndication. And so I'd say, oh, look, it's Star Trek. And I'd watch it and I'd enjoy it. But I would never go back to, it's not like today where you can just go out and buy the entire set. Back when even when I was in college, it was, you'd have to buy it on VHS. And so it was like, you'd have this immense set. And I don't think they even did the complete series on VHS. It was like, select episodes.
Yeah, single episodes.
And so, we didn't have that kind of, I couldn't really go back and watch it unless it was on TV. So I think it was like VH1 or something like that. And they would run Star Trek like in the evenings. And sometimes they'd have
Poor VH1.
I know. Sometimes it would be like they'd run an episode, and it was like you were watching a view screen within the TV, and it was almost, you remember pop-up video?
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like that, except for they'd have like a ticker down at the bottom. It would have facts and things like that.
Wait, are you talking about G4?
Maybe it was G4. Yeah.
That sounds.
That could be. It could have been G4.
Wait. So you're talking about G4 about maybe 15 years ago?
Possibly.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. This may come up later in our discussions.
Well, at any rate, so that's, I distinctly remember, I distinctly remember seeing The Voyage Home, and I didn't really know I knew the characters, but not like I do now. But I still remember almost immediately kind of getting into the feel of who these people were, which is a testament to how well the movie was done, even though that's arguably the most commercial of the movies, well, of the original series movies. So
Which movie?
The Voyage Home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, my friend and I went to Vegas, and we went through the Star Trek experience, and that was really cool. And again, at the time, I really wanted to see it, but we're going through, and they have this big timeline of all the series together, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, but not really having anything to connect it to yet. Mm-hmm. Looking back, I wish I had that experience, because now, having watched all the series, I think about, well, sometimes I think, okay, how do these fit together? You think you kind of know, but just to have it all laid out after having seen everything and it making sense and having meaning to you, I think that would have been cool too.
All right, Mike, what was like your first memory of truly like seeing Star Trek, or actually like getting into Star Trek?
The earliest I can remember, so when I was growing up, my dad would always call it Star Puke.
What?
Yeah.
Did he have a reasoning?
No, he wasn't a fan of it.
You don't
it was just, it wasn't like he like dogged on it all the time, but anytime that it happened to come up, like if there's a commercial on TV, he would roll his eyes at it or whatever. So, I never really was exposed to it until this one night when I was about 12 or 11. I think I was probably 11. I got up and came downstairs, and this was like midnight or something, and my sister was down there watching TV, and I from the top of the stairs you could see the TV, so I kind of just sat there and watched without her knowing I was watching, and I saw this there was this android on the screen talking to himself. And I'm like, what is that? And I just sat there for like 10 minutes just watching it, mesmerized. And then she finally noticed me and like invited me to come watch it with her. And it was the episode Data Lore.
Oh, nice. Oh, you actually remember the actual episode?
Yeah, it was actually the first airing of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was a real time, basically.
Yeah, it was like 87.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I was, like I said, I think 11 at the time, so maybe even just 10. I don't know when that aired, but anyway, that's my very first ever memory of actually watching it and enjoying it, like other than like my dad dogging on it.
So hang on. So is this whole band and everything we've been doing just rebellion against your dad? Is that what this has been the whole time?
This band is therapy to you now, isn't it?
Yes.
Take that, old man.
Screw you, Dad.
I'm a Star Trek band.
I'll prove you wrong.
One of these days, I'm going to start a band all about Star Trek and make you come and see us a few times.
So did your dad go, how's that Star Puke band of yours?
Oh yeah, he does. He takes a swig of his Jack, and when he's done, he throws a bottle and it busts next to my head.
No son of mine's watching that Star Puke.
No, actually, my dad's pretty awesome.
No, we've all met your dad, and he's a pretty good guy, except for that whole Star Puke thing.
I don't know why. I don't, and my mom has even told me, like more recently, that when the original series was on, he would watch it.
So he's just a dirty self-hater then.
So I don't know what his problem is.
Man, it's just a classic case of self-loathing.
Closet Trekkie.
There we go.
So over the next few years, I was mostly exposed to Next Generation and a little bit of the original series. And I knew of the original series, but I it wasn't really airing on a lot of stations that I watched at the time. So,
but you were probably at least well aware of like Kirk and Spock.
Sure, yeah,
least.
and I over the next couple of years, I had seen a few of the movies. I had a friend who all through school who was really into Star Trek, so he exposed me to some of it. For a while, I didn't want to like it because he liked it.
Yeah, it had to be different.
Yeah, he was this big nerd, and I was like, I don't want to be like him. But it was when I was a teenager, maybe like 15 or 16. Another friend of mine, his dad was a huge Star Trek fan. He had the entire VHS collection.
Wow.
So there was a VHS collection?
Yes, of every episode. And so we would go.
Same goodie. I should have known that.
Sure.
We used to go hang out at his house after school, and one day we were like, let's watch Star Trek. And so we just grabbed a random tape and put it in and just sat there, and we would just watch the entire episode.
Now, do you remember what episode that was?
The original series?
Yes, it was the original series. The episode was the Corbomite Maneuver.
Nice.
And so we just sat there and we just watched it. And, for maybe the first 3 or 4 minutes, we like joked around and made fun of it. But then after a few minutes, we all just got really quiet. And we were just watching it.
Because it's a great episode.
And after that, we did that not every day, but like a couple times a week. We'd go to his house and just like watch Star Trek after school because his dad had all of them. So that's when I
did you watch them in order or like all out of order? Like
it was just random. We would just grab
heathens.
whatever episode looked interesting. We would grab that tape and watch it.
That was the kind of nice thing about the original series. It was pretty much all bottle episodes anyway, so it didn't really matter what order you watched them in.
Episodic.
Pretty much anything in the 60s there weren't really any ongoing arcs, except for soap operas.
Was it like 2 episodes to a tape, or was it just 1 episode on each tape? Were there like 79 tapes?
I think there were 2 on each tape.
Okay.
I can't remember what the other episode was with the Corbomite maneuver.
And Chris, so you know, they did have them on Betamax as well, because somebody, I don't remember who it was,
At one of our shows at Locals Only.
at
a few
Locals
years
Only.
ago.
It might have been Dave. It might have been the guy who owned Locals Only.
Possibly.
Gave us a couple of episodes on beta
I remember that.
of original
Yeah, I
series.
think one of them was the Cage. Actually,
I think
it was
so, too,
either,
yeah.
it's either the Cage or like the one of the menageries.
Yeah.
How about
It's
Laserdisc?
probably the Menagerie because the Cage wasn't released until
Oh, yeah, you're
it's
right.
true.
You're
It wouldn't
right.
have
like
even
the
been on
90s
beta.
or whatever.
Yeah,
So did they have it on Laserdisc?
doubtfully.
Maybe.
They do. I have
What?
a copy of The Trouble of Tribbles on Laserdisc.
Really? You do?
Yeah.
I
But of
didn't
course,
know that.
But of course, no way to watch it though.
No, I don't have any way to watch it. It's right there next to my copy of Mallrats
On Laserdisc.
on Laserdisc.
I actually have the release poster from Mallrats that says now available on Laserdisc.
Have you tried putting it on a record player?
It doesn't
See if it
work.
works. Ah.
You can, I thought at least you could hear the audio.
Yeah. That's too bad.
So Andy, let's hear your earliest Star Trek experiences.
I like that when anybody else talks, Noah just thinks it's hilarious to hear like
He just starts giggling as soon as
nearly
someone starts
scripted
talking.
things. So, what do you think of Star? See, he's even giggling. I'm just making fun of it.
It's funny.
Exactly. My earliest memory was when I would go and stay with my dad on the weekends. My brother and I would get up fairly late. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, something along those lines. And I always remember, 11 o'clock in the morning, Saturdays, on, I think it was like the NBC affiliate, it was always wrestling, WWF wrestling. But if you watched it long enough, you watched it to the very end, which of course you're going to because that's when the main event happens. If you watch right after the commercials, an episode of Star Trek would begin, and it was original series.
Really?
And I had zero clue what it was. All I knew is that all of a sudden I heard a bunch of stringed instruments and horns all crescendoing and oh no, this was just like the weird little intro scene, like the cut before they went over to the intro.
yeah.
And it was like and I was like, that sounds like the old Batman show. And then of course it wound up being the episode Arena. So that was the very first episode I got to see was Arena. So it was Kirk being his macho self fighting a big rubbery green alien,
So
which
it tied into wrestling perfectly then.
pretty much, yes, exactly. I was like, I almost thought that they did that on purpose. But then subsequent Saturdays after that, I would always make sure because like my dad would always try to get us to pack up and go like as soon as wrestling was done, as soon as wrestling's done, we got to do chores. Nope. I would start arguing with him. He was like, "No, we gotta stay and watch Star Trek." So it turned out, but I didn't get to do it religiously, like I just kind of made it out to be just now. But if I could somehow convince him that I didn't need to go out and pull weeds immediately, I would be able to stay inside and watch Star Trek for at least another hour. So that was like my first exposure. But of course, like Noah mentioned in episode 0, my very first memory of Star Trek ever was the damn SETI eel.
Yeah.
Because, you're like 6 or 7 years
no,
old.
You're not supposed to see that.
Yeah, you're 6 or 7 years old. You see something crawling inside an ear and a dude screaming his head off. You're gonna have some nightmares. You're gonna like anything that lands on you near your ear, and you're already scared out of your mind because of watching something else scary. You're gonna start swatting at it, swearing it's that thing that you saw the dude from Fantasy Island putting in that tiny little Russian dude's ear. But of course, now we know who those people are, and I don't have to refer to it like that.
What's interesting about this is that I have learned things that I hadn't. I mean, how long have we been friends? At least
We've been
10
we've been
plus
friends
years.
for over 10 years.
For over 10 years.
We've been working on this band for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm finding out things just through these conversations that I had that I did not know before.
Well, see, that's the nice thing. Pretty much any like podcast interview that we've done before, has always been like the same thing. How did the band start? Who founded the band? How did you
I like
join?
Star Trek and I like music, so I put them together. Here
it
we
was
are.
going to be a Buffy the Vampire Slayer band.
Hey, when are we doing that anyway?
We're not. I just had this discussion with Noah because he was talking about going through a bunch of his old voice memos for song ideas, and he said he had like over 200, and I was like, well, if you have an excess of songs, maybe you can go and start that He-Man band finally.
And Mike and I looked at each other.
Because we know.
Because they're already talking about doing it. Chris, are you going to put up with this?
So going back to me for a minute.
It's all about you.
It is about me.
Always has to be about Mike.
It is.
He started the band.
It's true.
Technically. But who keeps it going?
Now I can't remember what I was going to say.
That means it wasn't that important.
Sorry we distracted you from your
No.
ego, Mike.
It was someone else talk.
All right, I can go back to a totally random childhood memory of Star Trek related to toys, because Patrick talked about getting some random Scotty from the original movie, right? From the
I think it was from one of the movies, yeah.
and they were like,
It was good, dressed all in gray, I think is what he said.
Yeah, and they were, yeah. And I had, and they were the same size as Star Wars figures. They were like 3 3/4 inch figures.
I like that you know the exact measurements.
I know.
Thanks a lot, Star Wars.
I know. Yeah, but I had the Spock, but like I knew I didn't understand why Spock was dressed in a gray uniform, but I knew of Spock, and I was like, oh, cool, this is Spock, and and his hands.
Picture?
Yeah, it's from the motion picture, and his hands were like, maybe all their hands were like this, but they were like in this weird like pre-grip thing, like somebody was getting ready to like
they were laying the hand on a shoulder?
Yeah, like laying almost like a Vulcan grip.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling all the hands were like that because they were probably just molded in those cheap Kenner molds, you know. But his hands were like in Vulcan grip thing, which I thought was awesome.
I like how when you did this visually, you had your arms slightly cocked but not bent because there was no articulation in those elbows.
Well, not unless you're those fancy G.I. Joes.
But I would make the Spock like Vulcan pinch the Star Wars figures because his hand was gripped for
because
that.
That's his power.
That's his power, and So how else was he going to fit in? He was going to Vulcan pinch people.
Did you ever make Vader and Spock face off with like Vader doing like the choke and Spock getting ready to Vulcan nerve pinch?
Oh, that's kind of meta.
That's a deep cut. Right?
Yeah,
deep cut.
That's no. He was just knocking out, like random aliens.
Greedo and
Hammerhead and Snaggletooth. Yeah, just knocking them out. Because the stormtrooper, armor's too thick. That he's not gonna get through that.
Well, I mean, unless you could pop the helmet off, but
Yeah,
they weren't that fancy back then.
No, and you'd have to get your fingers down like between the armor and that rubber wetsuit that they have underneath, or
Be
whatever.
like basically getting a Vulcan nerve pinch on a stormtrooper would be like shooting womp rats back at home. You have to get it just right.
Right. Especially using a T-16.
What?
Nerd. All right, I remember what I was going to say.
Thank God.
Great. Fine.
So my friend who we watched the Star Trek at his house, he had a younger brother. And once I graduated, this was the year after I graduated from high school. His brother was in like 9th or 10th grade. And he was doing a project for a class where he had to make like a commercial or something. So he asked all of us to help him make this. So we wrote this commercial for Jolt Cola. And
sidebar. Did you ever actually drink Jolt Cola?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I did.
Never had it. Never tried
did
it.
Because I remember, and sorry to interrupt your story.
No, it's okay.
But I remember getting like a case of Jolt Cola with a friend of mine, and we were gonna stay up all night. We were just gonna trash the shit out of that night.
Yep.
And
it put you to sleep.
And we both drank. I think between the two of us, we probably drank about 3 or 4 each. and just like knocked us out.
Yeah.
Right out.
That-
Jolt did not. It did the complete opposite of what you expected it to do.
That is, I had the same experience.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
continue.
jingle for Jolt Cola. Commercial for Jolt
Yeah, the
Cola.
commercial. It was
Do they
called.
still have Jolt? Does it still exist?
I don't think it does.
Yeah, no, Jolt doesn't exist.
Our commercial was not successful.
Apparently not.
Anyway, so
It's a retro show.
it was called the Mighty Jolt, and so we made this commercial.
What's this have to do with Star Trek?
I'm
He's getting there.
I'm getting there.
Sorry, I waylaid the whole thing, but it was important.
Yes.
So it was a Star Trek commercial for Jolt where we played the characters.
What?
So we first of all we beamed down. I'm making air quotes here. Beamed down in front of their minivan because it looked like a shuttlecraft. But why would we beam down if we had a shuttlecraft?
Good point.
You're beaming down to the shuttle.
Oh, and of course the effect was we hit record, we hit pause, we walked in, and then we hit record again.
So it's just a sudden
Yeah.
bloom.
It's pop, we're there.
Sort of like the whole like the episode of Wink of an Eye.
Yes.
All right.
Kind of. So then we also kind of mixed it with a little bit of The Last Crusade, because we get inside, we end up. I forget the whole story. I mean, the whole thing's like 3 minutes long, but like we get to the end, and there's this whole like selection of all these different drinks and cups and glasses and everything on this table. And and the guy standing there, he's like, choose wisely. And of course, my friend Tom is wearing the red shirt, so he walks up and he picks one and takes a drink, and just dies on the spot, right?
Stop being a stereotype, man.
And then and of course I'm wearing blue and I'm playing Bones, and I'm like, he's dead, Jim. And then the kid who was actually doing this video for the class, he was playing Kirk. So he walks up and he tries a different one, and it kills him. And then we're like, oh no! And then and actually, this is one of my proudest moments as a teenager. Is I said, "Damn it, Jim!" on this video that he was going to show to his class.
School.
And then I picked the Jolt and I poured it in Kirk's mouth, and it revives Kirk. And then Kirk stands up and he's like, that tastes good. Jolt Cola, and then he's like, 3 to beam up, and we just leave the red shirt laying there dead.
Well done. That was well done. That's good.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of exposure to Star Trek when I was younger, except the same friend of mine. He was a Trekkie when we were growing up. He used to make these tapes, and he had this. It was like a radio show, but it was like a mock radio show that he would do, and he just like had these tapes of this mock radio show, and he would make the voices and all this. So he and I, he got me into it, and so we would do this together and make these ridiculous little skits, and we'd make commercials and all this stuff. Well, one of the things we did is we did Star Trek. I had no idea, really. I didn't really know the characters that well enough that I knew the tropes that were used for each one. But we never did it. It was always a parody. So like when we did Star Wars, we did like, I think we called Chewbacca Boochaka, And
Kombucha.
Kombucha. That would have been it. Well, we were prepubescent. It was like, we were like 8 or 9. But I remember we called Spock Smock because, sure. But Scotty was Potty. So like, it
Of
was
course
just
he
this
was.
ridiculous
So
sketch.
Wait, what? How old were you?
I don't know, 8 or 9 probably.
Okay.
All right, that's excuse.
Yeah.
I thought you said like 18 or 19.
No.
I did too.
It
I
was-
was picture him like
No.
just out of high school.
Yeah,
doing
I
it.
thought you said
Hey,
something about.
Potty.
I thought you said something about college.
I don't know. I don't know if if the recordings still exist, but I know of that particular one. I know that some of them still do somewhere, and you can like our voices were clearly children, but I just remember just this totally just full of bathroom humor and just nonsense and just trying to mainly trying to make each other laugh, but it was all in this Star Trek world, and he would mainly kind of manufacture the story, and I would just kind of respond in a voice that I had created for a character that I, for some reason, was playing.
So basically, you were like yes-anding.
I was like the Andy Richter of this radio show.
One, sir.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that's I'd forgotten about that. But when you said you did the commercial, that kind of reminded me of our foray into our early podcasting.
Podcasting before podcasting was podcasting.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, why don't we wrap up this segment with like a quick little favorite convention experiences. We've played multiple conventions in our is it nearly 10 years or is it 10 years at this point?
It'll be 10 years. This summer.
This fall will be 9 years that we've been playing conventions.
But this summer, like
Shows.
this past summer, was when Noah and Mike and I started like actually playing in your living room
Okay.
10 years ago.
Yeah, and our first show was September 11th.
I was.
Never forget.
2010.
2010, yeah.
But our first convention was Starbase Indy 2010.
Yep.
That's right, November of 2010. Yeah, so we played a lot of conventions over the years. Just give me your one big standout moment, whether it's having a conversation with somebody, having an interaction with a fan, just a favorite moment, whether it be in a show, meeting somebody, anything.
There's so many.
Oh, I know. That's the hard part.
And like, I mean, you could pick one, but then you think of another one where you're like, well, that's just as good.
There are so many, but the first one that I can think of that stands out is we were playing Wizard World Chicago, and it must have been during year 2, probably, maybe. So, 2011 or 12, around there, probably. And I'm manning the booth, and I don't know where anybody else was. I just happened to be the one at our table. And the person who had hired us, she would check on us every once in a while. She came over, and she said, "Hey, could you moderate a panel for LeVar Burton?"
Oh, that's right.
And I'm like,
Forgot about that.
what? And what had happened, the person that was supposed to moderate for him, he had missed his flight, or his flight got canceled or something like that, and they just needed somebody to do it. And so the first people that came to was us, because we were the Star Trek band in the house, and I happened to be the one at the booth. And so she asked me if I would do it, and I was like, yeah, definitely. And it was the most surreal experience I'd had to date, because I had never done anything like that. I had seen panels, so I kind of knew it was really more of a Q&A. It wasn't like I had to sit there and ask him questions, which was good because I was totally not prepared for that. And at the time, I don't think I'd even made it through all of TNG. But it was just really cool because I go in this room, I introduce myself, and he's just this really, really sweet guy. And I intro him, and then he just kind of sits, takes over, and he's telling stories and answering questions. And I ask him a question at some point when it kind of gets slow. And it was just really cool. He was really, really a very gracious kind of guy, and made me feel like I was actually doing it right. And who knows whether or not I was. But that's the earliest experience that I can think of, convention-wise, that we did, where it was, first contact with one of the people that are kind of part of this family that we're drawing our material from. And so it was really cool.
Real quick, this isn't my memory per se, but my first interaction with LeVar Burton in particular was in Las Vegas the very first year that we played there. So 2014? Yeah, walked outside to take a smoke break. Right outside the green room doors, and I look over and I see LeVar Burton on his phone sitting on a chair, and he's talking on the phone. And I grew up watching him on Reading Rainbow and everything, but I hear him on the phone, and he's just like, F this, and cursing his head off, and I'm like, fourth wall. No. But it was awesome because it was one of those moments like, celebrities, they're just like us.
Speaking of Vegas, I think that mine has to be from the 50th anniversary in Vegas. We've met a lot of stars and a lot of idols, and we played all of them on and off the stage in Vegas. a couple times, but nothing. I don't think any of them compared to playing Whoopi Goldberg out onto that stage
Jack Flash?
with Jumpin' Jack Flash. And I mean, you mentioned surreal earlier, and that was truly surreal. Like, there's only so many moments in your life where you feel like you're not actually there, and it's not really you. And I mean, we were standing there playing that on that stage, and everyone in that room went crazy.
And she came out dancing too.
Yeah. And it was just unreal, like that feeling, like when there's like 8,000 people screaming in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't necessarily for us.
No, it wasn't.
We were part of the reason.
Yeah, I understand. Like, it's not for us, but we were on stage with her. And
Yeah,
it was
just having someone of that magnitude up there with us and being like, I know you from Star Trek, but I also know you from
Right.
watching all these movies of yours growing up, and then there they are.
And just 5 minutes before that, she like walked past us backstage and like shook our hands and like, hi, I'm
Yeah.
Whoopi. Like, hi.
We know you're Whoopi. No introduction needed.
Yeah, I think the first year we were in Vegas, I'm playing keys, and as I recall, the keys were so squished up against the side of the stage
Yeah.
that I was almost behind a curtain.
Yeah.
You were basically off stage.
I was nearly off stage, and we're playing something, and I noticed some movement, kind of out of the corner of my eye, and I turn my head, and there's Jadzia taking my picture, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, she's Terry Farrell standing there, and she's got her phone, and she's like smiling, and there were other people behind her, but like, Terry Farrell was like standing right there, and I was like, oh my God. It was just, I was like, we've arrived.
When you meet people from the original series and even like the next gen people, like they've aged. They look a lot older. Especially the original series. But like, some of the people from the more recent series don't look that different. So when you see them,
It's like you're meeting the character.
yeah,
almost.
you almost feel a little more like starstruck because they still look like their character, and especially Terry still looks
amazing.
exactly like Dex. So
Noah, what you got?
Well, it's really hard to pick a moment, and there are so many, that at different conventions. Some of them aren't even like positive memories necessarily. Like some of them are just like some nightmare, crazy.
Some kind of weird Spinal Tap moments.
just like
getting lost
insane,
and not like fighting with promoters to get paid and all that stuff. Yeah,
Playing an acoustic show under a picnic shelter
In the rain.
in the rain for
Riverside,
2 people in
Iowa.
Riverside, Iowa. Stuff like that. Still great stories and everything, but I can't get away from the 50th anniversary in Vegas. My moment there is not with any celebrities or anything like that. It was this crazy thing when when some of us decided to do this karaoke thing. And I don't know why this is like such a
It was just you and I.
visceral
First.
memory. At first it was, and like I on the record I'll say I don't like doing karaoke. I really don't. Like, I do not like doing karaoke in any way, shape, or form. Like, I am not like, I have one range. Like Mike knows, like all my songs are in the same key. I have a very limited range. So like singing some other person's song just doesn't work most of the time for me.
Unless it's the Warrior.
No, that was tough. Even I used to have to change keys on that. But
yeah, we have to change all the cover songs.
yeah, all the cover songs have to be in a different key. But I was like, I'm gonna go along with this. This is gonna be fun. But then there was like a long wait. So we signed up, and we signed up under the name of Gorn Hunter, which is always our like alias band is Gorn Hunter. And so we're like waiting around.
Well, and we had more people. We had like a group of people that were going to go up there with us.
We did have a whole group of
and
people.
it took so long. And the Klingons were the hosts for a while, and then
JG and Bob.
Yeah, JG and Bob were the hosts, and then
well, and there was no guarantee that you were even going to get called.
No.
Like
the
you
guys
signed
from
up.
Enterprise came out.
Yeah.
Dominic and Connor.
Yeah, Connor. Yeah. So they come out, and that's when everything started picking up. But we were about ready to give up.
Well, I think a lot of
You
us,
were walking
a
out.
lot of us had
I know.
everyone. I think everyone had left except for.
We even went all the way back to the room, got drinks, and came all the
Yeah.
way back, and
Yeah.
they hadn't gone on.
And they hadn't gone on yet. Yeah.
Was it you guys that were leaving when they were calling? I'm like running after you.
Yeah, we had left because I was like, we're not going to get called. This is stupid, and I'm not drunk enough yet to do this. So I was like, I'm going to go back to the room and get some drinks. And we did, and I took my sweet time.
Neil was with us.
Yeah.
Well,
Neil Carpenter was with us. He was the one that stayed with me while you guys went off.
okay, so for people who don't know, Neil Carpenter is an awesome guy, super fan.
Of Star Trek and
of Star Trek and a 5-year mission, and he was over from the UK at the 50th, and we got to meet him for the first time. He'd been a longtime fan, and we got to meet him for the first time in person. No, it wasn't the first time. It was the second time, right? He actually came to Indy once.
which is another favorite story.
Which is another favorite story. So anyway, finally, somehow we all wind up being there at the precise moment that they call us up. Like, we just walked through you and me.
Except for you appeared.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna
Fark
get there.
wasn't there yet.
Fark wasn't there yet. Mike and I had just gone back to the room to get a bunch of drinks. We came back to where the karaoke's happening. You're like panicking because they're calling us, and no one's there except for you, and you were about to go do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So Mike and I walk in right as they call, and you're like, "Get up here! What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And we go up there, and
Neil was with me too.
And Neil was with you.
Just to clarify your story here, I actually did not go up.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I think this happened like 2 minutes after I left because
Yeah.
I was starving. But also, I was looking for an excuse not to go up because I am terrified of karaoke.
Yeah. We all get up there on stage, start launching into 99 Red Balloons, which is what we had picked because they say Captain Kirk in it, and we thought that would be cool to do that. And we do this, and then all of a sudden, like, it's me, you, and Neil, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so me, you, and Neil are singing the song, and we're doing. And in the middle of one of the breakdowns, and we're like dancing and being stupid and goofy on stage, I look over, and Andy's just appeared on stage. I have no idea where he came from. He's just there.
I didn't know he
on
was there
stage
until he like wraps his arm around me and is like singing next to me. Like,
Yeah, like, here he is.
This is a thing happening.
He appeared, and I just remember like that moment, like we all like screamed Captain Kirk in the song.
The entire crowd.
The
is
entire crowd is screaming it back, and it was like that was just such a powerful moment to me, which is weird that it was doing karaoke, something I hate, like doing this karaoke, but like this rock star crowd singing moment back at you with like some really great people and this weird thing that just came together all of a sudden out of nowhere, and like that was just such a awesome experience, just like such a great moment in that I won't forget. I know, and Neil talks about that all the time. There's like a nice picture of us all up on stage.
Imagine, I mean, for us that was a blast, but for him, like, he came over from the UK. He's a big fan of the series and the people in the series, but also of us. And he ends up on stage with us, and then there's Connor Trenier and Dominic over there, and like they're kind of dancing and singing too. I mean, for him,
Didn't we actually bring Neil backstage at some point that
we
weekend
did
as well?
We did, yeah.
Oh yeah, we let him stand on the side of the stage while
Yeah.
we were playing somebody on. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, we let him come back a couple times.
Yeah.
Neil's a great guy.
The majority of my favorite memories are always going to be the ones that I've talked about, like on previous guest spots on podcasts. Like the one time we got to meet Harlan Ellison before he died.
Oh, Harlan's the best.
He was fantastic. That's always going to stick out in my mind. There's all these like weird little moments that stick out, like when myself and Chris and Noah were backstage being interviewed by what we at the time thought was an NPR interview for like a local affiliate. Turned out it's now part of the traveling What We Left Behind Star Trek exhibit. And it is a fantastic exhibit wherever it's been in Indianapolis. It's currently in Detroit. I believe it's moving on to somewhere in California next, if I remember correctly. But then in the middle of the interview, Joan Collins comes walking into the room and then promptly walked back out. Another short, quick little memory. I had my deodorant was in my backpack in our green room, and I was like, "Why are you guys hanging out in the hall?" And you guys said, "Oh, they're doing something in there." And I was like, "Well, I got to get this out of my bag." I punch the code in, walk in the door, and there's Nichelle Nichols having a catered chicken dinner with 3 of her handlers. That was a weird one.
Another favorite one is definitely Max Grodenchik calling Andy on the phone.
Yes, Max Grodenchik. The final night of, I believe it was the 50th anniversary in Vegas. Andy, oh my gosh! Please tell me you still have a keyboard here. The Rat Pack's keyboard blew up. And I was like, who is this? Well, because I didn't have his number programmed in my phone yet. All I saw that it was like a weird number from like Germany or something, because he lives over there with his family. And I was like, yeah. And I had to check around and make sure that it wasn't one of the things that had already flown back with, I think Patrick had already gone at that point. And sure enough, we grabbed the keyboard, grabbed some drinks, grabbed a few friends. We were like, hey, Rat Pack's using our keyboard. Follow us if you want to sit backstage and watch the Rat Pack show. And so we like walked in
in there?
Yeah, we walked
heroes.
We walked in the main door and had the keyboard hoisted above your head.
Yeah.
And I was like, "We made it!" And people started cheering. And that was
fun.
That was a fantastic memory. We got to watch the entire Rat Pack show from backstage with our friends. I believe it was Claire that wound up farting on the couch backstage, and that was awesome.
You're welcome, Claire.
Calling you out, Claire.
That's Isolinear Chick on
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yes. So
If you want to send her a message.
Oh, don't even send her a message. Just tweet at her with like GIFs that have to do with farts, and it'll be fantastic. And that wraps up episode 1 of the 5-Year Mission podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you will be back, because we'll be back whether you're here or not. Thanks, Bill and Dan from the Trek Geeks Network, and we will see you next time we decide to record one of these suckers.
5-Year Mission out!
Edit that out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5-Year Mission podcast. If any of you are interested in listening to more of our music, you can check us out on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or pretty much anywhere that you can listen to music. Just search for 5-Year Mission and we should be the first thing that comes up. If you would like to contact us in regards to the podcast or anything else that you want to talk to us about, you can email us at 5yearmissionband@gmail.com.
This week's episode of the 5-Year Mission podcast has been brought to you by fan sets. Whether you choose to wear them or display them, there is something for everybody, ranging from the Star Trek universe to DC to Harry Potter and beyond. An unbelievable 20 new pins from Fansets made their debut at STLV this year. Wish we could have been there. And they are all amazing, including the Women of Trek collector set, including Lieutenant Uhura, Dr. Beverly Crusher, Counselor Deanna Troi, Major Kira Nerys, Captain Catherine Janeway, Sub-Commander T'Pol, Commander Michael Burnham, the Borg Queen, and Edith Keeler. If you don't hear the name of a favorite female Star Trek character in there, don't worry, because this is going to be an ongoing series. As well as new autograph pins featuring Brent Spiner as Data and Doug Jones from Discovery as Saru. Each pin is personally signed and comes with a certificate of authenticity. These are not machine reproductions. All right, Fansets, are you really going to make me drop all that money on a Doug Jones pin? I think you just did. And also new from Star Trek Discovery, all the Season 2 episode pins from episodes 1 through 4, as well as the Season 2 logo pin. New Trek Tech pins, including the Klingon Batleth and a TNG phaser rifle, as well as the new Star Trek Picard logo pin and a half Picard, half Locutus pin. On top of all that, the STLV exclusive Uhura pin sold out within mere hours at STLV. But good news for anyone who was not at STLV but wants to get one of these collectibles. Head on over to fansets.com anytime between now and August 31st at midnight Eastern and pre-order this pin. Fansets will only be ordering the number of pre-orders that come through by August 31st, and they will be shipping by mid-October. After August 31st, you will never be able to order this pin again, so do it now. And as a special bonus to our listeners, if you would like to receive 15% off your entire order at fansets.com, simply enter the word 5-year mission at checkout, all caps, the number 5 at the beginning. This bonus code will be available until Sunday, September 15th, 2019 at midnight Eastern Daylight Time. Again, enter the code 5-year mission at checkout. Fansets. We are Star Trek, and we thank our friends at Fansets for sponsoring this week's episode.
Corrections and redactions.
My directive is prime, and I'm right every time. And this time I think you'll find it's a better day.
This week's corrections and redactions are being brought to you by Classic Rittenhouse. The traveling Star Trek exhibit that features 5-year mission interviews is known as Star Trek Exploring New Worlds. What We Left Behind is, in fact, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine documentary that features 5-year mission's version of the Deep Space Nine theme song played over the end credits.
Even though you don't know how, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
On the next 5-year mission, the podcast, we'll be sitting around and playing a little game we like to call It's Real or It's a Fake. We'll be having real and fake Star Trek facts, and we'll have to figure out which is which. Stay tuned. And while you're at it, why don't you head on over to 5yearmission.net and pick yourself up something nice, like a CD or a shirt or something. You'll see it. Do it. Buy things. Buy our things.